My name is James Chirwa from Messina Legal Advice Office in Limpopo province. Also works as a research with the Wits University from the African Center for Migration and Society Division. I've been asked to share with you about the work that my organization, Messina Legal Advice Office, has been involved with in the past few years. As you are aware, and for the benefit of those that are not aware about Messina Legal Advice Office, I would love to briefly say that Messina Legal Advice Office is a non-profit organization that was established in 1988. It is located in Messina town, which is situated 12 kilometers from the Beitbridge border post. The Beitbridge border post is one of the busiest land ports in the country and is the gateway to Zimbabwe and other neighboring states in Southern Africa and further afield. Notwithstanding the existence of a designated point of entry, Beitbridge border post, some migrants opt to use undesignated crossing points to access the border post of South Africa. Messina community is by nature a migrant community by virtue of the fact that a large population of its citizens were once migrants who came to Messina to work in mines as migrant workers in other time, and over time naturalized to be South African citizens. The political and economic situation in African countries north of South Africa has led to a great number of migrants, documented and undocumented, crossing the Limpopo River into South Africa. The majority of the migrants crossing over are from Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Somalia, DRC, Congo, Burundians, Nigerians, Ugandans, and in the main do not cross at the designated point of entry. Messina town's proximity to the border post makes it host to a transient migrant population for which numbers are very difficult to establish due to their undocumented status and mobility. As a result of Zimbabwean and other countries' challenges, most of its citizens cross the Limpopo River to seek asylum in South Africa. As such, during 2008, Messina Legal Advice Office established a relationship with faith-based organization in Messina in order for them to be accommodated as a result of the influx. The Catholic Church, United Reformed Church, I Believe in Jesus Christ, the Lutheran Church were among those who provided accommodation by way of shelters for women and babies, women and girls, men and the boys who are unaccompanied and separated. Many migrants were detained for not having documentation to be in the country and were deported on a day-to-day and weekly basis by the Department of Home Affairs. Messina Legal Advice Office carried out monitoring from the police detention facilities and provided legal support and advice to asylum seekers. As a result of awareness campaigns and advocacy work by our organization, saw the reduction of arbitrary arrest, detention, and deportation. The migrant community had difficulties in accessing the immigration department as the majority entered at undesignated entry points, and many were subjected to mugging and killing by the notorious Amagumaguma, the Limpopo River robbers. Many asylum seekers traveled by foot about 500 kilometers plus to obtain Section 22 permits in order to regularize themselves in Pretoria. As such, Messina Legal Advice Office asked the Department of Home Affairs in Pretoria to establish a reception center around 2007, and finally in 2009, it was established, making life easy for migrant community. Many migrants were employed as farm laborers without the necessary documentation in surrounding farms in Limpopo, and in the process they were exploited by the employers. Many, after working for months without pay, the employers will then call the police and get them arrested for trespassing. Messina Legal Advice Office played a critical role in eradicating such situations, and a number of employers were referred to the Department of Labor and the CCMA for flouting both labor laws and the immigration laws. The office drafted appeals for asylum seekers who were rejected by the Department of Home Affairs from the RSDO's decision. MLAO, being Messina Legal Advice Office, which works in collaboration with other civil society organizations, continue to do so despite limitations of resources. MLAO carries out workshops to educate the respective departments such as the police, Home Affairs, DSD, Department of Education, the community on the rights and responsibility. MLAO also carried out sporting activities such as soccer tournaments in a drive to improve social cohesion in our community. During 2012, our organization carried out a project on building and strengthening communities of diversity and peace. The community was involved, focus groups were established, including peace ambassadors. Sporting tournaments were organized where migrant and citizens were actively involved. The primary legal instrument governing migrants, which our organization observed, are Universal Declaration of Human Rights, African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Constitution of South Africa, Immigration Act, and the Refugee Act. The establishment of shelters in Messina in order to accommodate the girl child, unaccompanied and separated children, was in a bid to uphold the principles of the best interest of children at all times, as a primary consideration in all situations concerning children in the context of international migration. The objectives and policy recommendations which aim to gather better data on international migration, minimizing factors that compel people to leave their own countries, provide migrants with proof of legal identity, reducing vulnerability in migration, including the conditions they face in countries of origin, transit, and destination, combating smuggling and people trafficking, amongst others. As countries stumble from one crisis to another, particularly on issues relating to political instability, climate change, and migration, and the recent COVID-19 pandemic, perhaps it will be quite interesting to see how the question of global compact will be dealt with going forward by respective countries and the world at large. However, civil society organization, which has been playing a pivotal role, remains to be seen how it will vigorously advocate and get, in order to get positive feedback. As an organization, we acknowledge the donor community, in particular Atlantic Philanthropy, UNHCR, Foundation for Human Rights, IOM, the Canadian Embassy, HIVOS, HCIA Foundation, for creating an enabling atmosphere for us as an organization to do the work that would enable migrants to find their way in South Africa. Lastly, I want to also acknowledge Human Rights Watch, the University of Canada, and other researchers that have worked very closely with our organization and the community advice offices in South Africa. Thank you so much.